usually when you celebrate and observe your anniversary. And so we had an understanding of time prior to us actually creating a calendar. And so this first green period, hold that up for me, please. This first green period was a period of approximately 1,500 years of peace and harmony with Africans ruling the world. And then there's this little slither of green which lasted for 150 years, where the Hyksos came into Egypt and conquered Egypt. However, you will notice on here, after every red, there's another green. And so we will return to our greatness as we did. Pull that tight for me. Pull it tight. Pull it. No, just step back and pull it tight. And not in there, hold your position. Stay there. And so when the Hyksos came in, we kicked them out and we reestablished our high order. We had another breakdown. Now it's important to understand that every breakdown that we have had in our history since antiquity came from inside of our own weakness. Us adapting and adjusting to foreign ideals and dealing with foreign practices. Each and every time we did that, there was a breakdown which then allowed for our enemy to come in and conquer us. And this is why now today, and young people hear me clear, this is why today is so important that we understand how dangerous and detrimental this music is that we listen to. Because we are subscribing to something that's outside of us. But we'll get down there in 1 second. And so, keep that up for me. Y'all, I done seen y'all running around. I know y'all got some energy. Just hold on. All right, and so again, and I'm trying not to stand in front of the speaker, so step back just a little bit because the microphone will act up if I step in front of the speaker. And so again, there was a breakdown. We kicked them out. There was another small breakdown for less than 100 years. We kicked them out and reestablished order. Another breakdown, and so forth and so on. And then we had this very long breakdown, and we kicked them out and established order. Now this little slither of black here is a period, and as well as this green, is a period where we never returned to high culture again, okay? But we were still leading in the world. This is during the time when we built the Songhai empires, Malik, Timbuktu, and places of that nature. But we were still on the ball. And again, these Europeans come this way out in the day, and I'm going to help you keep it tight. The Europeans came back, and we reestablished ourselves. They came back with the European expansionism. We marked that day, in what year does Columbus sailed the ocean blue? 1492. See how well we talk? 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. And that, okay, I got it. Thank you. That was the beginning of this little time period right here, family. That was the beginning of this little time period right here. So you need to understand and remember, because you already know it. So you need to remember, hold that for me. Hold that and hold it up. Hold it up. All of that green, family, we had before we reached this point where we at now with Columbus now sailing. Everybody with me? This becomes important because if you look at yourself within the construct of this much time, you cheating yourself out of all of this time. If you don't only teach your children about this time, then you neglecting them of understanding all of this time. You can't necessarily talk about African royalty out of this time. You need this time. You can't talk about African ingenuity out of this time. When Baba Jabalani talks about giving the world of sciences, the calendar, the map, there's nothing on this planet that the European is doing today that stump our children in math that your ancestors didn't create. And so here's the thing for the young people. If my ancestors created, then it's within me that I can do it. And how do you know that you them same people, young people? Because that's the same moon and the same stars and the same sun that they studied under. That ain't no new sun and that ain't no new moon and them ain't no new stars. Them are the same ones, Africans. And so don't try to work so hard and disconnecting because of this and you tired of seeing slave movies. Start remembering all of this, because this is where the rest of it lies at. Everybody with me? And so when we discuss this, and I'm going to close out, I don't want to lose nobody, I want to get back to the music too. But when we discuss this, and we start talking about the first this and the first that, you need to understand when they talk about the first black man in some white institution, that was the first black man that they let in there. The first black woman that they let in there. Not the first black man or the first black woman that was worthy or deserved to be in there. That was just the first one that they let in there. Is everybody with me? And when you put it in perspective, the brightest of Europeans couldn't even sit at the feet of those down here. Do you understand me? And this ain't no rhetoric. Even European historians have said it. They said that those that you enslave and that you disrespect are the very ones that gave us our mouths and our sciences. And so you ain't got to believe no black person. Go and see what they say about who and what you are. Who and what we are. Yebo? And in that, it won't be so easy to be reduced to a B and H or a nigger. Everybody with me? No African in their right mind is going to allow for somebody, anybody, not even another brother or a sister, to call them a nigger. Yebo? I don't care how they spell it, N-I-G-G-A, N-I-G-G-E-R, or any other cute way they figure it out. We ain't niggers. We come from royalty, under the same sun, and under the same moon, and under the same stars. Yebo? So, let me just close out with this. Yebo. Y'all clap it up for yourselves. Yebo. Thank you. Y'all can have a seat. Thank you. So in this little slither of red in this time frame, right? 1492, we're looking at Columbus, European expansionism. You see this little slither of black right here. This little slither, this very fine little slither of black. Because this is what we say, that we have to get back to black. We're a long way from green, but before we can get to green, we got to get back to black. One thing at a time. This was the Marcus Garvey era. This was one of the most productive eras that we have had as an African people since we've been here. Marcus Garvey from the 1919s to the early 1920s. Is everybody with me? The same brother that gave us our red, black, and green. The one who encouraged us to understand that the first revolution is the revolution that takes place in the mind. When you know that you are African, because see, a lot of things that we do it because we just say that we do it. And we don't realize it's African. And the reason why we don't realize it's African, because we don't know Africa when we're looking at it. Yebo? How many of y'all got a big mama? Or had a big mama? Or know of a big mama? That's traditional Africa. She was known as the Queen Mother in Africa. Had more rank and responsibility to the village than the king did. In fact, the king consulted with the Queen Mother in the Council of Elders. Everybody with me? How many of you have that place over the fireplace, the mantle, I think is what it's called, or someplace else where you keep those photos of people that done passed on? Anybody, one or two people? You can hold your hand. That's something to honor. You know why? Because you practice an African tradition. Whether you accept it or acknowledge it or not, that's a shrine. That's where you are honoring those that have come before you. How many of you have a chair in your house that can't nobody sit in because there used to be daddy chair, mama chair, or something like that? When I was coming up, it was a Uncle Jimmy chair. And couldn't nobody sit in Uncle Jimmy chair for a very long time after Uncle Jimmy made his transition. I'll never forget it. It was a burgundy lazy boy style chair, leather all cracked up and everything. But yep, you couldn't sit in that chair. That was Uncle Jimmy's chair after Uncle Jimmy died, right? So when we talk about when we talk about the red, black, and green timeline, we got to be clear exactly what it's giving us. It's telling us that there's a whole lot more green in our past than there is red. In every spot that there is red, we seen green again. And so it's just a matter of time and a matter of work. And this is why this work that reminds us that we are African, as I was saying in the beginning, is so important and it cannot be underestimated. Everybody with me? Give yourself a strong round of applause. Come on, clap it up. Come on. Hold on, I'm gonna give you the mic. Come on over here, AWOL. You don't mind that, do you? Okay.
Listen, I have a special treat for you. You may recall that the state of Illinois enacted a law making Juneteenth a state holiday. And when they did that, they named a state director of Juneteenth. And here today we have the state director for Juneteenth celebration for the state of Illinois. Her name is Lestine Byers. And with her we have one of her lieutenants, whose name is Proud Wolf. Proud Wolf. So let me introduce Miss Lestine Byers right now. And she has to go, she has another engagement. She is the state director for the Juneteenth celebration.
Good afternoon. It's indeed a pleasure to be here. Floyd didn't say that he's one of the main characters in the Juneteenth celebration that we do every year, and we didn't do it a couple of years because I've been ill. But Governor Blagojevich was the one who signed into law the decree making Juneteenth a state holiday here in Illinois. And out of 50 states now, when we first started celebrating Juneteenth, only 5 states recognized Juneteenth as a holiday. Now it's 45 states. Awesome. Due to Dr. Myers, who is a medical doctor in Mississippi, his hard work. And I think it's only a few, South Dakota, North Dakota, and 3 others, and I can't think of who they are right now. Haven't brushed myself up on the history of that. But I'm just as pleased as punch as you guys are celebrating Juneteenth. As you know, it's the oldest celebration of freedom in the United States. And what black folks did then, black folks do now. As soon as we found out we was free, then we took off, stopped working in the fields, put on our Sunday best. All right. And commenced to cooking barbecue ribs, frying chicken, and making all the good stuff that we eat. We did just that. And in Chicago, our celebration consists of President Obama, who was then a senator, and he knows about Juneteenth. So if you guys, your next celebration, you want to invite him, he is well aware of what Juneteenth is, worked with me to make that law possible. He was the senator at the time when it became a law. And all our schools, 15 schools celebrated Juneteenth with us. And in the parade, every year when we celebrated Juneteenth, we had to honor an achievement or accomplishment by African Americans. Since they've been here, first blacks, African American doctors, museums, and June is the Black Music Month. Am I correct, Proud? Yes. Proud of seeing so. And so we used to have a great time in Chicago doing this, and we're going to start back doing this again in Chicago. So since I've not pulled together one in Chicago, then I decided to visit every Juneteenth celebration that's going on around the state in the month of June, just to make sure that we're having a good time like they did then. Slavery, we're out of that, hopefully. In our minds, sometimes I think we're bound up with some other kind of nonsense. But again, I appreciate Floyd for inviting me. Proud Wolf is part Indian and a cowboy. You know, I've learned a lot since I've been doing Juneteenth. I didn't know the black cowboys came from the black men that were called cow, and because we were called boys then, cowboys. And white people love running around on a horse talking about they cowboys. It was back ours. Proud, would you like to have a few words? So again, enjoy your day, and we had fun finding you, but enjoy it. Even his GPS couldn't find y'all. We just looked up on you.
There's no swamp.
I tell you.
Okay, I hadn't intended to say anything. Okay, I'll just come with my friend out here so I get elected. But I want you to know something. We have such a deep history, not only in Mother Africa, but right here. Did you know that the first inhabitants of the Americas were blacks? They were blacks. The oldest skull found in South America was that of a black female. The oldest skull found off the Yucatan Peninsula off Mexico was a black female. We were here. We were the first inhabitants. When you look at the Olmec man, I don't know if you've seen them, but down in Mexico they have these big heads. They stand about this tall. They weigh about 8 tons. It's a black face. And if you look at the back of that black face, you see braids coming down the back of their head. We were the first inhabitants. Even the natives, which a lot of people, I have Cherokee heritage. And with that Cherokee heritage, I go down to Tahlequah, Oklahoma, when I can during the summer. And I sit in the arbors with the Cherokees and we do what they call stump dances. If you've ever heard a stump dance, it sounds like an African folk song. Now, if you ask some of the white folks that call themselves Zelagi, they'll say, oh, no, it didn't come from no black stuff. But if you listen to it, and I have them in my car, if somebody wants to listen to it later, you'll be able to detect what it really is. It's like a cancer. And it's not like what you traditionally saw as native music. You have a cancer, they're going around the circle, and unlike, you may have seen a powwow. At a powwow, they go around the circle in a clockwise fashion. Well, the Zelagi, the Yuchi, the Seminole, the Muskogee, the Choctaw, they all dance counterclockwise around the circle. And we dance all night. We start about 10 o'clock in the evening and we dance until about 8 o'clock in the morning. Now, the thing about it, if you listen to the cantor, it's not anything you saw on TV, because so many people are confused about what a Native American looks like because of TV. It's a shame. When we first started doing this, I was asked why there was nobody on our float, because we used to do a parade that had a headdress. You might have seen the long eagle headdress that come all the way down to the ground and stuff. Well, we didn't wear that. There were over 500 nations in the United States, 500 native nations. They all had different customs, different clothing, different ways. We wore turbans. If you look at the Zelagi, you look at the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, the Creek, they wore turbans, just like they do, in India, parts of Africa, with plumes, with ostrich plumes. We didn't wear the eagle feathers back then, okay? When you listen to the stump dance, it was totally different than anything you've heard. You had that cantor. Okay. Getting off into it. Well, you've heard a little bit of that history. It's time for us to go to a different avenue. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'll give them another strong round of applause. And brother, while now is not the time for that history, we have to know that history. Yabo, you got to study that history. We're going to move straight forward and bring Brother Salim up to speak to this ideal of slave life. Y'all welcome Brother Salim with a strong round of applause. And we're going to try to move through this as quickly as possible so we can get the music back on. Yabo? Look at that. Yeah, so y'all enjoying yourselves? Look at that. How many of y'all playing softball later in a little while? Shortly, before it get dark. Just it look like just me and the brother over there that's been, what about the young people? Y'all got y'all gym shoes on? Y'all ready? Y'all can't come to the park and be cool, man. Who do that? Right? Right. Y'all give Brother Salim another strong round of applause. Yeah, well, okay, so we're going to continue to move through the program, and I appreciate it. But anyone that wants to eat that have not eaten, please come on and, you know what, just as the brother is talking, if you fix your plate, just be mindful and try to be as quiet as possible. Yebo? Yebo. So the food bar is open.
Brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to greet everybody with the greetings of peace, of Assalamu alaikum, Hotep, and Habari Ghani. I want everybody to excuse me. I'm feeling a little bit nervous right now. I don't know why. I don't usually feel nervous when I get up before an audience to speak, but I think the adrenaline is kicking in because of the subject matter that is at hand. Before I share some other things with you, one of the things I want to do first is share some pictures with you. But before doing that, the first thing I'd like to say is, without education and information, there can be no inspiration or motivation. We must understand that the written word is more powerful than a loaded gun. We must educate to liberate. We must educate to liberate. I say once again, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, we must educate to liberate black people. Okay? All right. Let me show you this right here. I'm sure some of you have seen this in perusing various history books. This is pictures of Africans, our ancestors on the African continent, being marched as much as 300 or 400 miles to the coast of Africa where they could be boarded on slave ships. There's no other race of people that have ever experienced anything horrific like this. You could talk about what happened to the Indians and the Jews in Nazi Germany, etc., but nobody ever experienced what our ancestors went through in the Black African Holocaust. And every other race of people on the planet just about had a piece of the action. Whether they were Arabs, whether they were the Portuguese, the Spanish, even the Jewish people had a hand in the African Holocaust, okay? All right, here's a picture. Here's a picture of the bottom of a slave ship. Many of us have seen this. And in one of the books that I've read, and also I include this information in the book that I wrote called Slavery, Reparations, and White Supremacy, the voyage on the bottom of these slave ships, our ancestors were packed like sardines in a sardine can. And the trip that they underwent on board these slave ships often took 2 and 3 months, leaving the west coast of Africa until they arrived to the shores of North America. And on these ships, according to what I read, they had these giant shipwrecks that would get on top of our ancestors chained down, and they would bite out their eyeballs. They would go in their mouths and eat out their tongues. Okay, these are historical facts that I'm telling you. You know, one time when I was giving a talk one time at a restaurant at our monthly meeting, and a black lady came in with her children, and she screamed at the top of her voice, "I don't want to hear what you got to say. You're going to make my children hate white people." I'm not here to make any of us hate anybody. What I'm here to do today is to show you some information that make you love one another a little bit more than you do. And in the hopes of us loving one another, we can stop some of the self-destructive mentality that's going on in the black community. Okay? Here's a picture of a brother being cast overboard, to be eaten by sharks. This is what they would do to our ancestors when they got sick. They would throw them overboard to be eaten by sharks and alligators. Here's another form of punishment. This is the slave collar that they would put on the slaves, and sometimes it was a punishment for rebellious activity. They would put it around the slave's neck, and he wouldn't be able to stand up long, nor would he be able to lay down. And they would keep this slave collar on the necks of your ancestors for weeks at a time. is another punishment for the slaves. If they were rebellious,